Hello, welcome or welcome back. You're watching The Scorpionic Witch. I'm Venus Sterling. This is a video about what I believe is my worst placement in my natal chart, right, which is my sun sign. Right, and everything that goes along with my sun sign, my conjunctions, the oppositions, everything that it implies. My sun sign is garbage, right? If you have a Capricorn sun or a 12th house sun or both, Capricorn 12th house sun, as I do, right, then you may relate to this, and I hope it does shine some light on some things. But reminder that I do also have my Venus, which is in retrograde, and my Mercury conjunct with my sun sign, as well as my Saturn swapped with my sun sign. Not in opposition. It's hard to explain, but I explain it later on. Right. This placement sucks. Right, it's kind of hard to get worse than this placement. Right, the sun hates everything about it. Okay, and I will get into that. But basically this is just a rant about how sucky this placement in my chart is. Most of my chart is pretty malefic as it is. Middle-y, which just basically means there's a lot of hardships. Right, I'm Saturnian ruled. I'm also Saturnian dominant. Right, straight off the bat, my big three are all malefic. Right, I've got a Capricorn sun, Aquarius rising, and Aries moon. It's sucky, okay? But this, I believe, based on experience, is probably the shittest placement in my natal chart. And this is, like I said, basically just a rant about me complaining about it. And I'm basically just going to give you reasons and experiences as to why this placement sucked and sucks currently. This placement straight off the bat from a logical, astrological standpoint is terrible immediately, right? Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, the planet of darkness, of restriction, of boundaries, of rules. All things the sun is not a fan of. That just being the planet of darkness, the sun cannot stand it. It's a luminary, it's the large luminary, right? It refuses to be hidden. Right, even at nighttime, although they didn't know this in traditional astrology, even at nighttime, the sun's light is still seen because the moon's light is actually just a reflection of the sun on the other side of the planet. So at all points of time, the sun refuses to not be seen. Its light refuses to not be seen. It needs to shine. Right, but Capricorn is a fairly humble placement in the sun. It doesn't like showing off. It doesn't like bragging. It doesn't like looking for attention. It wants recognition because Capricorn suns are hard workers, right? Putting it in the sun is usually the area of life that you're naturally good at, right? And this is why a lot of Capricorn suns will not resonate with their sun sign if they don't have any other placements in Capricorn for a fair while. Usually people start to resonate with their sun sign around the time they hit puberty, and then it gets worse and worse because that's when you start to develop your sense of ego, right? Of I am this, I am that, I am this, right? But Capricorn has to work 10 times harder to say those things because nothing comes easily to a Capricorn sun, right? It is the sign of hard work, right? It's the sign of putting in 10 times more effort than everyone else, right? So a lot of the times Capricorn takes longer to develop that ego. So you may find that it takes a little bit longer after puberty that you actually start to resonate with your sun sign. And then to make it worse, as if it could get much worse, the 12th house is the house the luminaries probably hate the most, especially the sun, because the house, similarly to Capricorn actually, is the house of the hidden, of the unseen, of somewhat darkness, stuff, all those things the sun does not like. The sun does not like to be hidden. It needs to be seen. And the 12th house does not let that happen. That it basically, it could not get much more debilitated than this placement, right? And then to have it conjunct with Venus and Mercury, like I do, basically means that shittiness sort of jumps over into other areas of life that no one really wants it in, right? So it's just straight off the bat from an astrological perspective, the bare bones of it, it's terrible. It's incredibly debilitated, right? The sun hates being in this placement. everything about it sucks. And I'm going to give you some experiences, and I'm going to explain why. Now, this may not seem like a massively negative thing to anyone who's just hearing it for the first time, but I will get a little bit more into it in the next point that will explain why this is so annoying. As Capricorn suns, we put in 10 times more work than everyone else, right? Capricorn suns are always the ones who put in the effort, and we pride ourselves on it. We pride ourselves on the fact that we put in the work. We can't stand lazy people who don't get reprimanded for things, because we put in the work. And so we can't stand when other people don't, first off, and we cannot stand when other people get praised for less work, right? We're not saying that everyone has to put in more effort than us. It's just that people shouldn't be praised for things they aren't doing. The side effect of that is always, in high school especially, is that when we get into group projects, we cannot stand them because we know we'll do almost all the work and everyone will get equal credit for it, right? And then if we tell the teacher that we did almost all the work, we're the bad ones, not the people who were too lazy to actually do their jobs, us. We were the bad guys, right? And because of the 12th house, no one sees that work. So half the time, people will believe the other ones, right? And like I said, because it's your sun sign, it's your ego, it's your pride, right? We do pride ourselves in the fact that we are hardworking, right? We are likely to say that we do put in the work. We are hardworking. We put in the time and the effort. But because it's the 12th house, no one sees that. No one sees that work, right? For some reason, it just flies over everyone's heads. Or the only time people will show up to see if we're working is the moment we take a break for the first time in hours. Right? That is what happens to us when half the time we're putting in way more work than everyone else. We strive to be hardworking. It's like a pride of ours, right? It's a part of our ego. But because of the 12th house, no one sees that. No one actually sees the work. We were never naturally good at anything. This is not me trying to insult everyone else. This is actually a compliment to Capricorn suns, right? It sucks as children looking up and everyone's got some talent, something that they're just naturally good at, right? They're naturally sociable or they're really happy all the time. As someone who has a 12th house stellium, I don't understand that. It's fine. This is a Capricorn stellium. They were naturally good at art, at music. They played some sort of instrument, right? They were good at singing, right? And this probably isn't the case for everyone who isn't a Capricorn sun, right? There is likely other people who have tons of 12th house placements or something, or tons of 6th house placements, and they had to put in the work. But because the sun shines a light on it, the things that regard your sun sign, Capricorn suns always seem to be surrounded by people who have a natural talent, right? I look back on my childhood and I realize I don't know a single person who wasn't naturally good at something. It was usually musicians and artists, right? Because 12th house, right? Music, art tends to fall under the 12th house, right? And so I knew tons of people who were amazing singers, right? So many people. And I realized that I actually saw a statistic about this. I am like significantly higher than what the statistic is for how many people you know that are good singers, right? I don't know a single person who can't sing except me. I kid you not, right? I haven't met a single artist who wasn't naturally good at art. Not a single one in real life. Statistically, do you know how low probability-wise that is? And we were never naturally good at anything, right? We always had to put in 10 times more work at something. We always had to decide, I want to be good at this, and then put in years of work to do that. Worse, because it is your ego, right? The sun sign is your ego, right? We pride ourselves on the hard work that we do put in, the effort, that it takes us the years of work. And so when someone comes up to us and says, oh, you're just so naturally talented, I just said it and I got triggered, right? Do not say it to us. It is an insult. We know you don't mean it that way, but that is how we will take it, because you're telling us that all the years of work we put in, all the effort we put into whatever project you're complimenting, all the hours to weeks, right? All the work is nothing, right? Because the 12th house the 12th house sun makes it so that people don't see the work. They only ever see the after, right? So say, for example, you do a painting that takes you days to do without ever stopping. After years of practicing art, and then someone comes up to you and says, oh, you're just so naturally talented, how do you do it? And your brain immediately goes, how bloody dare you, right? Naturally talented? No. This took hours. This took years of practice and hours to make. Right? How dare you say I'm naturally good at it? It's not talent, it's work. It's skill. I built this skill. It took me years to do. Right? And I know to everyone else, that seems like a massive overreaction. It seems like you're getting offended by something that is meant as a compliment. We know it's meant as a compliment, but it's not complimenting. Right? It's insulting. You never say, oh, that looks like it took so much hard work, you did such a good job. You never say that, or you're so skilled at that because you put in so much effort. You never say that either. It's always, you're so talented, how are you so good at that? Right, and then when we respond with, oh, 7 years of practice, you get offended. Right, you act like us actually responding with an actual answer is offensive because the idea of us not being naturally talented at something for some reason offends you. But we can't be offended at the fact that you're implying that we put in little to no effort into a project that we did. All right, obviously, as someone who has this placement, this is a bit triggering for me, as you can probably tell from watching me. All right, this isn't a compliment to us because you're telling us that all the years of work, of skill building that we put in, right, and all the hours it took us to make this painting means nothing because we are just naturally talented at art. Right, which is not true. We're not naturally talented at anything. We always had to put in the work. And so it immediately triggers us because we have to put in 10 times more effort when we weren't naturally good at anything and we don't get recognition for it, ever. Right, and then other people get offended when we call them out on saying something that we take as offensive. And to make this all worse, because it's the 12th house, which rules over trauma, because trauma isn't usually physically seen, and the 12th house is the house of the unseen. So it's like mental scars. Any planet that you have in the 12th house, usually the mentalities and the negative traits are stemmed from trauma. So my ego and my need to be recognized as hardworking and always putting in more effort than everyone else, right? It's how I'm usually the calm one in every situation and I have such well control over my emotions, is based in the fact that I grew up in an environment that did not stem that, right? I grew up in a very explosive environment, a very sort of like walking on eggshells sort of thing. And so naturally, most people who grow up in my situation are usually very reactive, right? Very quick to anger, very traumatized, and usually push their trauma onto everyone else. But I put in the work to do better. I put in the work to not be like that. Right? And admittedly, being an Aries moon, sometimes that reactiveness does come out, but I have put in the effort so that the areas that does come out aren't from a trauma stemming thing, right? Which is very hard to do, right? And then the need to be better at things than other people, the need to put in more effort and more work, stems from the fact that I know, for one, how hard it is to break out of traumatic cycles, and two, because I am always being told that I'm doing nothing. I have 6 older siblings, right? 5 of them being brothers. And although my siblings would probably never believe me if I told them this, because 12th house means that they almost never see this happen, right? And I always come across as dramatic because Aries moon and 12th house sun, meaning that no one ever sees what actually happens to me, but they only ever see my reaction. Right, my reaction always seems over the top, when usually it takes a lot to antagonize me, right, because Taurus Mars. But regardless, a negative part of growing up was that I was always told that I was never doing anything, right, that I was lazy, that I never put in any effort, and that I was just leeching off other people and that I do nothing, right. I was always told that I did nothing around the house. Usually right after I do like 3 chores in a row that I didn't need to do, was usually asked of one of my brothers to do. They didn't do it, so I did it for them. And then I get told I do nothing, because I will eventually go, why are you asking me to do it when one of my brothers is standing right there? And I usually get yelled at and told that I do nothing and that I'm just lazy. And so I have this internalized need to prove that that's not true, right? And it's very hard being the 12th house and Saturn, because it wants to restrict things. So for example, right now, I'm finding it really hard to find a job in my area. I'm trying to find a place where it's within walking distance so I don't have to rely on other people to get me there. Right, but I'm finding it really hard to find somewhere that's hiring. Like, nowhere in my town seems to be hiring at the moment, but I've put in probably like 15 resumes in the past 3 months, and I keep getting told that I'm just not putting in enough work. Therefore, I have this internalized need to show everyone that I do put in the work, right? That I do put in the effort and that I'm not just lazy, right? But the issue is the 12th house makes it so that no one ever sees that work. And so that stigma never really goes away. And then, as if it couldn't get worse, what it's conjunct and in opposition with sucks, right? So my 12th house Capricorn is conjunct with my retrograding Venus and my Mercury. And then it is in opposition with Saturn, not only my Sun, Mercury, and Venus ruler, but also one of my chart rulers. Everything about it sucks, right? But because it's specifically the Sun that it's conjunct with, my Mercury and Venus, right, it means that those areas of life are something I pride myself in. I pride myself in the fact that I tend to be very good with money, despite having a Pisces second house, which is not something they're very well known for, right? I strive to be good with money because I grew up in an environment where that wasn't the case. And I am very good at friendships. I am a good friend, right? I am a good sibling, and I feel bad saying that, right? Because I've been conditioned to believe that anything that I have pride in, I should hide, because 12th house, right? I am good at academics. I am a smart person. I am a very well-articulated talker and conversationalist, right? But every time I say this, I get backlash, because 12th house, I'm meant to hide it from people. People get offended by it, right? But what it also means is that because it's Capricorn, right, it means that in those areas of life, I've had to work 10 times harder just to do it, right? I've always been the sort of person who has I've never been able to make friends very well, right? And when I do make friends, I strive to keep those friendships, and it's caused me a lot of trauma in the past, holding on to not great friendships. Right, same with school. I had so much shit in school. It doesn't even have to be like really big things like that. Mercury also rules over things like technology and music. I've always found it, I'm pretty good at technology, but I'm not the best. I always find that it takes me way longer than most people to learn something, but once I've learned it, I'm usually better at it than most people, right? But it still takes me a little while. Or music is ruled by Mercury as well. I really like my taste in music. I have a very broad taste in music, but because of the 12th house, I don't really show it, because I also know that despite the fact that I like my taste in music, a lot of people don't. There are certain things, like for example, I have so many songs on just my regular playlist that are from shows, like movie and show songs, like Disney songs, that sort of thing. Right, I have a ton of other music, but there's also a lot of the movie songs, right? And I know they're considered abnormal to actually listen to on a regular basis. And so I don't listen to them out loud. I always listen to them with earphones. I always found it harder to learn a musical instrument than most other people, but once I learned it, I was always really good at it. So for example, I find piano really easy to learn songs on. Like, I pick up songs very fast. Right, but when I started learning piano, it took me ages to get the hang of it, and I've never been very good at any other instrument either. Despite how hard I tried, there were a lot of instruments that I just couldn't seem to get. But I have very long fingers, very long skinny fingers, so piano was always the easiest of them. right? Because of the physicality thing more than anything else. And as for Venus, for example, because of the fact that I am an Aquarius rising, and as per usual, you always refer back to your rising sign, there was always this abnormal thing going on when I was growing up that everyone had to have a crush. If you ever had that experience, you know what I'm talking about, where there's like this norm that you have to have a crush on someone, and if you say you don't, you're just lying about it. Right, but my issue is that as someone who had a Capricorn Venus in the 12th house retrograding, I never liked anyone ever. Right, it would be hard for me to even get like a physical attraction going, but I've never really had a crush on someone, not in real life, right? Never. And so it always caused me grief because people would always just assume I was lying, and that pissed me off because it like hit my ego because it's conjunct with my sun sign. It would always hit my ego, like I'm not bloody lying, right? And so my immediate response would be to become defensive and offensive, like insulting them for having a crush on someone at all fucking times, right? Because I never did. It's the same reason I hide my music the majority of the time, because I know someone will say something, and because it's conjunct with my sun, it will trigger my ego and I will immediately become insulting, right? It sucks. And then to have it in opposition of my chart ruler, my lord, it sucks, right? And I misspoke earlier. I said that my Saturn, one of my chart rulers, was in opposition with my Sun, Venus, and Mercury. That's not true, right? Because Aquarius is the opposite of Leo and my Saturn is in Leo. It still sucks, right? I did misspeak. What I was thinking of, there's an actual word for it, but I can't remember off the top of my head, is where the planets swap their zodiacs. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, right? But I have Capricorn in the sun, and then Leo is ruled by the sun and I have it in Saturn. So they've literally swapped zodiacs. There is an actual word for it, right? But I was thinking of it because Saturn and the luminaries tend to not get along, and they actually tend to be in opposition. So Cancer is the opposite of Capricorn, and they're actually in opposition of each other, right? Whereas for Leo, it's Aquarius. Not much better, because that means my chart ruler is in opposition with my rising sign, but regardless, that's not what I'm talking about. All right, so basically what this means is that I had even more struggle in areas of life that I wanted to be good at. So Leo is quite a creative and artistic sign. It also is a placement that's really good with children, for example. I'm artistic, I have creative skills, and I am good with children, but I also have a lot of trauma surrounding those areas, surrounding that I was good with children, surrounding that I am creative and artistic. I've gotten a lot of grief for it, right? And because of 12th house, right, all the 12th house placements, the 12th house sun, basically meant that all of this just became trauma. It sucks. Alrighty, that's the end of it. I do hope it helped if you were looking for information on your own placements, or if you were just researching basic astrology. I do hope it helped, considering I just basically want to complain about my sucky placements. But yeah, if you got it this far, congratulations. Right, and thank you for watching. If you liked, please put a thumbs up. If you didn't like, put a thumbs down. If you like me, consider subscribing or clicking that bell, and let me know if that works, because I've actually never done that before. Alright, it seems annoying to have notifications completely pop up, so click it at your own discretion. But I do hope you liked the video. If you didn't, do not leave nasty comments in my comment section. No one forced you to watch the video. Alright, it was your own choice. You could read the thumbnail, I assume. Alright, but I do hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are.